Are you the type of individual that loves to create harmony and peace wherever you go because you're like, I don't want to deal with the conflict? And you'll want to tune into this episode as my guest talks about how he still to this day has to be very cognizant of how he is kind and nice and creates peace, but also holds people accountable. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of The Leader Within. Today, I'm excited to introduce Dennis Agbegha, a business leader who prioritizes empathy and connection, believing that success is built on relationships. Dennis inspires those around him to be authentic and to lead with their hearts, creating an environment where innovation thrives. Given his experience and that he's a beacon of light in every room that he walks into, I'm excited to have him share his insights with you. Well, welcome, Dennis. Can you share with us a story that has shaped the trajectory of your career?
Thank you so much. Pleasure having me, Angela. One story that's changed me is I remember, and it goes back to this point because I think it was a defining moment in my life where I moved to Canada. So I moved to Canada to work. I got my permanent residency, came here to work as a geologist, but couldn't find it. We couldn't get any job, and went through a program called Higher Landing. And the idea of me going through Higher Landing was to find a job. That was the only reason I was gonna do it. And knowing that I was a geologist, my transferable skills were very, very minimal. So that's why I did it. But I came out of that program I didn't get a job what I wanted, but it was a very, very important moment in my life to actually find my why, what made me different from everybody else, why I did what I was doing. So for the first time in a long time, it gave me that opportunity to reflect upon my life, the actions I'd taken, and how where I wanted to go. So going through that program was really revealing for me, and I found that I was more of a peacemaker. I was a connector. I was an explorer. But if I put all of that together, I was a service person. So I realized that if I found the jobs, or if I remember in my life to always put service, always the first thing I want to do, I will always be happy. I will always find peace. I will always be fulfilled. So that was very, very pivotal in my life. So even though I couldn't work as a geologist, I went into, which is a story I've shared over and over, going into the call center. But it was a pivotal time in my life because I didn't think about all my masters anymore, all those other hard skills, all those other things, which were, well, I know they're still important, but kind of focused on who I really was. And at that point, I think when I got to that point of finding who I was, I think it just changed things for me in every area, in my relationships, in the things I did, the people I hung out with, how I looked at people, how I walked with people. I think it's something I will always remember.
I just wanted to give you a kudos because you leaned into that space of really understanding, okay, what makes me tick and what differentiates
Mm,
me? Because I think that's a one thing that will help you future-proof yourself in a sense, right? Rather than
yeah.
being really tied to, hey, you know what? I've already invested all this time into my master's and my education. Like
Mm,
I have to hang on for dear life. But at the time that you came, it was an economic downturn where they weren't really hiring for that, right? So
yeah.
I love that growth mindset. And
Yeah.
I'm curious because you mentioned that peacemaker part and
Yeah.
can fully relate. When it comes to being a peacemaker, there's also that piece where it's like, you know what? Like navigating conflict is not easy, right? That's why you want to be proactive and keep the peace, right? So you don't
Yeah.
have to lead into the conflict. So
Yeah.
how have you been able to effectively navigate conflict?
Interesting because it's something that you try every day, and recent happenings in my life realize that I'm still not perfect at it, right? But on the other end of it, we keeping the peace, I'm very good at it, right? So I want to, if I when I find myself in a group, I'm the guy who wants to like, okay, hey, how do we work together? Hey, do you know that person? Do you know that person? So I have all these tools, all these things in my head to create an environment of harmony, right? But however, when it goes into places where people are now having arguments about, everybody feels strong about their opinions, I find myself not, even though I might support one of the opinions, I find myself trying to, automatically find myself going to the middle, trying to find myself like, okay, yeah, I know this is what you like, and that's what the other person likes. Okay, let's just forget about it. I'm that guy. Let's forget about it. Let's not talk about it. Let's just find something that we can all do. So it's a struggle, and sometimes too, I get upset, to be honest. I get upset about it, like, why, what did you mean by that? Like, yeah, so, but I find that when I come to those spaces and those points, I find trouble inside of me. There's so much trouble inside of me. My heart is worried. I'm thinking about it. It's just a constant, when there's a conflict or something going on, it's just constant in my head. Like, I try to smile when I see people, but when I'm on my own, like, it comes back to my head, oh, we've just sorted out. So it's something I'm walking through day and day, or not to even respond to things, but it's just taking time to, like, okay, let it go today. Let's forget, no, there's no winner in the argument. There's nobody won today. Nobody's right or wrong. Let's let it go and think about it over time, and bringing myself to the point again of reaching out maybe to people or that person to say, hey, we had this conversation, or this thing happened, and I didn't really feel good with it. Just wanted to let you know how I feel. I just wanted to know where you're coming from. And I'm hoping that, we can always forget that, or what I said or what I did, it does not become you don't hold that to define who I am. Especially it's so important, especially these days, where, like, everything is, sometimes things are so polarized, right? You're either for this group or not that group. And being able to see people beyond what they believe, being able to see people beyond what they stand for, and so, like, there's still a humanity behind. So for me, it's just taking that time, get out of the conversation, letting it go, and allowing them to be who they want to be, and find places and spots where we can smile together, where we can work together, and not allowing the things that they've done, the things that they do, or the things that they believe in come into the way I want to relate with them, because that is something I find today. Like, this guy's red, that guy's blue. Everybody forgets everything around it and just defines them by red and blue. But there is a humanity behind them. I think I've said this story about two people in two different groups, and both of their spouses had cancer. And at that point, that was the first point for them to look you into their eyes and say, oh, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. It was one time of their life they forgot that this person was red, that person was blue, to say, like, we're human, we're going through the same pain. So for me, it's always trying to find myself there, right? And I'm just gonna still say, Angela, it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle every day, but in my head every day, I'm always trying, telling myself, how do I make peace? How do I make peace out of this situation? How do I make peace out of this situation? And sometimes making peace out of this situation might mean that, just let them go. That's what it means. Just let it go. One part of me again was that I always wanted people to accept me. I'm that guy who wants to be everybody's friend. I want to be everybody's companion. I want to be everybody's be on your good side. But until I really realized that in life is impossible, you can't do that. Even you trying to be authentic makes somebody upset, or a group of people upset. So you're just going to realize that you're going to try to do your best, right, in to keep peace. But at the end of everything, you won't be able to please everybody, and some people you just have to let them go. So I think for me, having all of this understanding has really helped me to say, still, when I let people go, I'm still a peacemaker. Whether people accept me sometimes or they don't accept me sometimes, that does not define that I'm a bad person. I'm still a peacemaker. So I've come to that realization of it. I'm going to put in my best to make it work. But when it doesn't work, when it doesn't fit who you are, when it's just going to go against everything you stand for, and you let it go, and these days I'm come to realize that, you know what, I'm fine with it. Right. So it's not easy. I'm going to still say, and it's not easy, but every day I walk through it.
You covered on so many dimensions of that, right? Because there's that self piece where you said, you know what, I'm going to take a pause and step back. Do I need to create space, walk away, let them go, etc., or reflect? I think sometimes we are always on the go, that we don't always make that a priority when it is part of being able to effectively manage conflict.
Hmm.
The other aspect of it was, you said, the human element. right? We got to take a macro look at it again, which is not easy because again, we're on the go. So it's easy to view whatever context we have that's in front of us, but
Yeah.
not realizing that everything else around it actually impacts the bigger picture. And I think it ties
Yeah.
into why you're so good with creating great client experience. And that's part of where your strength of being service oriented comes in as well, because you go back to, okay, so what's the best scenario here? Like what would be the best path moving forward, especially if we're serving a client?
Yeah.
And from the leadership aspect, I'm curious, have you ever had a major leadership epiphany where you're like, I think this actually is the reason why I can create spaces for people to innovate and show up as their authentic self?
I remember I was leading this group, and I was the youngest. I was, which sometimes, being a leader to people who are older than you, it's very, very interesting. And this will make you laugh. So I was the leader. I was just appointed the leader for the group, and walking through them and saying, hey, I think we need to do it this way, this is where I think, trying to bring those innovation, trying to create, those right changes using the tools that I know. I just try to be nice to everyone. And I would not, there was this lady, in the group who wasn't really happy with me for, being, and from a cultural standpoint too, she was older lady than me, she was black like me, and said, hey, you don't order me. You're not my age. You don't know more than me and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, okay, but however, we all need to work as a team. And, this is your responsibility. This is how we need to make changes. And I remember one of those days, she wasn't doing what she was supposed to do. And I walked up to her and said, hey, this is what we talked about. You were not. And she got up and actually slapped the hell out of me. Yes, she did. She got up and slapped the hell out of me. And she not, why it was so interesting was it wasn't just me and her, there were other people in the team that were there. And I remember the only thing that came to my head at that point was walk away. That was the only thing that came to my head, walk away. And I did. I just walked away. I walked away, took some time to chill, took some time to not respond to, that, not respond to that. It was painful. There were so many things going through my head. There were things and it was from a culture, things me and you would understand that for you to be a man, and there was so many things wrong, from the picture, from our cultural standpoint, and I walked away from it and kind of, what was interesting was that I think it was the right thing for me to do, walk away. Walked away. It was interesting that the people who were there, walked was like, what you've just done is wrong. You shouldn't do this. You should never do this, those sort of things. And people also walking to me and say, Dennis, take it easy, all that. And, for me, just like something, I took a couple of days to let it go because inside of me, I'm conflicted about the action I should take. There's something inside of me say take action. There's another thing inside of me trying to say, you're a peacemaker, take it easy, right? So over time, I just let it go. You know, did she ever apologize for it? No, she never did. She never apologized for it. Boy, what was interesting because it showed the people who were there that this is a different leader. And what it did again for me was that it made my group and my team more loyal to me because they knew that there was this part of me who was not that person who would just react, right? So even though it was one action, but I won the group better, the team became even stronger because people could come down to me and just say, hey, this is what is going on. But for me, on the other end, as days went by, and as I kept thinking about what had happened, I realized that they were just like you said earlier, that when people show up at work, when people show up at groups where they belong, we see them, we give them some sort of, we say, hey, this is the work they're supposed to do. But it's not just about the work they do. It's about from the home they came from. What happens in that house? What was their interaction before they showed up at work? And as I continue to analyze these things more and more, I started to have more sympathy for her instead of anger because what she was going through and the things she was going through, There were just so many things. And seeing this guy in front of her, the younger person, doing all of this, I think just made her more upset. But for me, as I took out time to, I kind of even realized how to deal with her, how to say, hey, okay, let's do it this way, let's not do it the other way. And over time, like I kind of won her. She became part of my allies as well, right? So for me, I think, that was one I think I never forget about. But how, just letting that action, letting that self, that, I'm making her understand I'm here to serve. I'm here to, I'm here for us to work together. I understand you have issues. I understand, but I'm here for you, right? So it's one I will also never forget, because it made me it caused, that innovation we wanted in the group actually happened, just because it wasn't a good thing that had caused it, but it was something bad that happened that made it. And that was one of the best groups I ever led.
It's funny because when you first shared that story, my instant reaction was my hand was like lifting up. He wants to slow back, right? Like it's just like an innate reaction for me. I don't know if it's because the martial artist in me is just like reflex, right? Defend, right?
Self-defense.
Yeah, self-defense, right? Like you do not take that, but the other part where it's like the HR brain or the leader brain, and the human brain, you're like, okay, no, violence is not the answer. Do not retaliate. So you have such maturity, and I'm curious because when you have really nice cultures, sometimes what ends up happening is that the accountability and the self accountability for that individual is not upheld. So it sounds like to an extent your team leaned in and was like, hey, like that's actually not cool. Like we don't hit people at work
Yeah,
and don't do it again. And then
yeah,
there's other element of it where they leaned in and you were able to influence them in a way where they actually continue to perform really high and work effectively together. So I'm curious, like, what did you learn through that situation that you were able to take forward where it's like, you know what, there's a difference between being nice and being
hmm,
respectful. You can be respectful without being a people pleaser all the time and
yeah.
still drive performance and team effectiveness. So I'm curious, like, again, what's one thing that you learned through that situation to be able to, again, bring that respect plus accountability together?
Yeah, and it's interesting because of that was the first, like I think that was the first time I had real leadership. That was my first time, my first intro into leadership. I had other forms of leadership, like when I was in school, leading different groups and all that. But that was the first, I think about it, was my first real leadership role that I had, right? So, things, what that taught me was that yes, you're the boss, but you're not the boss, right? Because interesting, because of the leader before me was the boss, like she was the boss. She was like, everybody sits down and everybody does, right? And it's interesting to realize how just we talked about this, how we're influenced by many things around us, and yet we do not know, right? We're being influenced by our leaders, we're being influenced by employee, like everything around you is influencing you to a different degree, and you just don't know. I believe that I had me inside of me, but there was that leader that was before me, and I was like, okay, this is the way she did certain things, and that's the way I wanted to do it. But if the response to it was different, so what it was a lesson for me, even on how to, approaching people, or how the questions you ask, or when all of a sudden people start putting that, like barriers, those roadblocks. You want to find what's going on here. Are there other ways to do it? So for me, it was more of like, okay, find other ways. At once there's a barrier there, I want to start going around it. I want to start like trying other option, not trying to try this. Okay, this is the way it is. This is the way we're gonna do it. I just want to find other ways. For me, it taught me to find other ways of doing things, because there's not going to be one solution. There's going to be many solutions. And to that thing again, for me, taught me again is that, um, being authentic doesn't mean that. I remember going through this course and we talk about being authentic. I am that guy. I love people. I want to do things. I want to serve. However, maybe I'm rushing for a meeting and this car just shows up in front of me. There's that tendency for me to that, being inauthentic, or like, oh, what is going on? like, that kind of thing. But I've come to realize that there will always be that, that inauthentic person show up at some point in your life. But I'm beginning to learn that when those times show up, they don't define me, right? There will always be that human response to situations. So for me, I think having to lead, just being a human, right? And guess, I just like, got to your point. I know we have rules. Violence is not allowed. There's certain things that are not allowed. And it's interesting because if this happened today, that would be a different conversation. It would be a very, very different conversation. Even if I didn't want to take an action about it, people will do. HR will, right? It was back in the time you're like, yeah, let it go. Don't worry about it. Just let it go. So for me, it's just finding other ways to do things. Finding other ways to do things. Saying yes first. Not I don't like penalizing people right away and find out what. And there may gonna be people who just, what would you're in HR, how you're gonna say this? People just don't want to do anything. They just don't fit into the culture. So I want, when things happen, when things like that happen, everybody sees it that they just don't fit into it, right? And it brings you back to the beginning point that you won't be able to solve all the issues. Life has to go on. Tasks need to be done. Things need to be done, right? And I have to forgive myself to say, hey, you know, they don't belong here. They got to move somewhere else. And I hope that whatever has happened here becomes something in their journey that they can also use to learn and become better in the next place. Who knows? 2 years down the line, they might fit back into your team because of a couple of experiences they've gone through to actually shape them so they could be the person to be in your team. So for me, I think those are things that I've just learned and not just want to judge them that they are bad people or bad situations, but find other ways to do stuff and just, give people the opportunity to learn, because I think it was a learning opportunity for her as well. So I think those are some of the things that I learned using that situation.
I appreciate you sharing all those insights, and it shows that you definitely like reflected on it, and you've grown as a leader as well, right? Like where you're like, you know what, there's going to be instances where it's like, okay, like it's very clear that their intention and remorse, right? Like the after effect, how that
Hmm.
ties into that behavior in that moment, and again, like I think you do such a great job of looking at it from that 360 view. And so I want to switch gears towards one of your zones of geniuses, which is related to building the meaningful partnerships, keyword meaningful partnerships, and
Yeah.
really creating that really great client experience. So I'm curious, like, what's one thing that has helped you be as successful as you have? Because if you go, like, if anyone were to go to your LinkedIn and they look at your last two employers, they'll see that you were promoted at least 3 times within 1 to 2 year time frame, which is like pretty incredible, right? That's a combination of effort, timing, and relationships, everything. There's so many facets to that. But again, what's
Okay.
that one thing that really helped you create that meaningful partnership and great client experience?
For me is, I was, interested. I was thinking about this last week. And I think one of the biggest things, trying to narrow down to it is that say yes attitude, you know, that's a say yes first attitude. There are lots of people. There are times I've said, let me start from this part. There are times I've said yes first and I'm not being able to do it, and it becomes stress to me, and because of I'm unable to deliver. But I found out that more than 98% of the time, me saying yes first has created the best customer experience, has caused innovation, has caused the ability to know people better, has given me the ability to even problem solve better just by saying yes first. Because at once I say yes first, I'm able to, I'm able to bring people to a common ground, right? So that yes first attitude has really, really helped me. And when I think about like even the jobs I've gone in, like even starting from being a geologist, being a geologist and back into banking, I think one of the things that really helped me is I'm not gonna, I don't know, part of, but when I joined ATB, then there was like the 10 ATBs, and one of them was like, saying yes first, say yes first. I know, what's the guy, the Virgin guy, he says something about say yes first and find a way to do it. And I think for me, that has really, really helped me in everything that I do. First time I saw financial statements and all that, I didn't really know what. I was like, you know what? This is awesome. I will get back to you, right? Like set up a time, like, and interesting. That's a yes first attitude made, this was like, okay, this person's going to help me. Apparently, I went to meet a team members like, I don't understand what this whole thing means. Can you help me understand it? And we went through to other and realized that, oh my God, there's no deal here, right? Then so like, this is why there's no deal. This is why this is not going to happen. And these are the things the person needs to do. Having that clear understanding, I went back to the client to say, hey, I told you, like, I thought we could do this, but apparently this is the reason, these are the reasons why this will not work. If this were a different situation, this is what would have worked. However, based on where you are, these are the things that will work for you. So now, a couple of things. If I didn't say yes first, I wouldn't have learned, right? I wouldn't have learned something new. If I didn't say yes first, the clients would have left the meeting or left us not knowing what they needed to do. So because of I said yes first, I learned, the clients learned, we had a great customer experience. And guess what? The client was able to get what they wanted after a period of months. So that's by saying yes. And guess what again? I built up a new friend. So that yes attitude for me, I think has really, really helped me. I always, and it kind of ties back to that service, right? Because I want to be of service, right? And I respect people who are like, okay, I'm not a spontaneous person. I think about it very well before I do anything. There's nothing wrong with this because you need, even I've realized in the teams that we work together, we need those people who are like, well, there's something behind this. There is something behind this. Let's not say, yeah, they're always needed in the team. But being that optimistic person, being that yes first person has really helped me. It's really helped me learn. It's really, where people are trying to learn so much to do one thing, I've had that same time to do 10 things. And I've learned different lessons. I've learned faster. I'm that kind of guy who wants to get my hand dirty. I want to go to the grassroots. I want to go to the ground to understand things. And that's one thing, being that yes first situation helps you do. When people come to me, I see them as humans. I don't count them as numbers, right? I always want to put myself in their shoes as well. So when you do that, it's just like saying, I grew up in Nigeria, and growing up in Nigeria, there used to be this thing like, there's things about, I don't know if I should say this, but somehow I'm gonna say it. There was a like high level of crimes, and they made a rule that if somebody is shot, that you cannot, maybe for some reason you go into it with a gunshot wound into a hospital, you needed a police report for you to be treated. So that they wanted to make sure that if maybe a criminal was shot, like they're not getting treatments, and the police was not aware, right? So if you think about the understanding of it, you're like, okay, I understand what they're trying to do. But guess what happened? Lots of people lost their lives because there were other people who were just, you know, when maybe there was a shootout, something, and they got injured, now going to the hospital, they couldn't get treated, and the people passed. It caused so many havoc for so many people, right? So, but however, so that's it, I know that's a crazy example of saying yes first, but however, you want to treat humans as humans. I don't, whatever we've done and all that, but say that yes first, save a life. And which is different from a philosophy when you're in Europe or you're in North America. It's like, let's save the life first. Let's get them to where they need it. And every other thing, we'll deal with the bills later. We'll deal with the other things later. But let's have them, let's get them to where they need to be. So for me, yes, first, it has really helped me learn about myself, learn about people, ruin my job, and it just made me see things that I've never known. So that yes, first also ties to being an explorer, right? Because as an explorer, you're trying to build a picture out of something that, nothing. It's just like you're a painter, you're trying to bring the colors together to create this work of art. So you see how service ties to the explorer, right? And being able to connect all of those things to create a picture, which at the end of everything, you're serving. So I think that has been a huge one for me, that yes first attitude. Does it have its, I'm just going to realize, say again, does it have its own downtimes? There are downtimes of saying yes first because sometimes you're stressed. So I just want to say that it doesn't mean that I say yes first, that I don't have issues with it. I still have the ball, when I think about the 99% of the successes I get, it gives me that opportunity to continue to say yes first.
Okay, I'm curious. There's one piece that I want to dive into because I'm not sure if you can relate to the experience because I've done a little bit of sales in my past life for a SaaS
Yeah,
company, and
yeah,
I've also like led teams where we deliver programs, right? So I work with a team of specialists and then they help deliver. And I'm similar to you where like sometimes I'm like, yep, we can do that, no problem, right? Because you're
yeah,
like, we'll figure it out on the back end. And that came back to bite me, right?
yeah.
Because sometimes your developer will be like, no, 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 you cannot do that,
Doesn't
right?
work.
Your program is like not a realistic time frame. You got to go back, right? And then I think from there, I learned it's like it's better to say, let me look into that when I'm
Mm,
not
mm.
yes, but let me look into that. And then when you come back, it's not a straight up no. It's how about we explore this? How does this land with you? Like, did you find that you kind of had to navigate that learning curve as well to be like, okay, like let me look into that for you instead? Or how did you navigate that?
Comes with experience, right? It comes with experience, first attitude comes with lots of, because every interaction, everything you do is becomes a data point for you to refine who you are, right? So as I keep saying yes first and I keep knowing and know what I can do and not do, it just makes me better at what I do. Because now I go into those same conversations and already I know if we can do it or not to do it. And the interesting thing about it by saying yes first is that you're put into multiple scenarios that you can draw lots of solution from. You can see like how was that solved? How did we do this? How were we creative or innovative in getting a solution? Than one person trying to find, let me deal with this one first. Then let me see if we can do this. Then, while you're trying to think if we can do this, the guy who said yes first has seen 5 solutions, and his fourth solution will be the solution to the first one, right? So that's the whole thing about that I found for me with it. So as you do it over time, you get the experience, and you're not reducing on the customer, you're not reducing on the customer experience, right? Because of it's always a continuous process of learning. And yes, first doesn't mean you will be able to do everything, because there will still be things that you cannot do. This week is Small Business Week, and I think I have the permission of this friend to say this. But 2018, they were going to go into business, and I was the account manager. Everything was right. I fought so hard for them to get this done. We all did together, and there was a condition given to us, and they found like, well, if they did this condition, it was going to kind of ruin into their working capital. So they decided not to take it. But one thing I left that conversation is that they knew I was committed to their success. They knew that, hey, Dennis wants us to succeed, right? But at the end of everything, it was a decline. Now, I met them only this week on a Tuesday at an event. And she walks to me and said, hey, you must be Danny. You remember me? I was like, I don't remember who you are. And she called her name. I said, oh my God. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And we chatted, we're laughing. And she was talking about the experience that she never forgets that experience herself and her husband, and they remember that experience. I wasn't able to do it, even though I said yes first, but at the end of everything, the outcome of it was a good thing, because she told me like, I'm glad even that stuff didn't work out, because what had happened when they looked at the property, there was some issue again they didn't find. Then COVID hits, like business that their kind of business would not have thrived, and all those sort of things. Right? So guess what? There are many things from that experience that I learned that I've applied in many other scenarios. I've applied it with many other scenarios. So yeah, and it ties back to what you're saying, experience, right? If you don't do it, my mom always told me something. If you don't begin, how do you become? You have to begin at some point. And with me working as that whole sense of being a geologist, you go into a basin and there's nothing. There was only maybe an oil seep somewhere. And you try to say, okay, do I see that? Do I see this? Do I see that? Do I see that? And you put all of that picture to create a story, to find the resource that you need. So everything comes with experience, right? Over time, you're going to see things that, this is hard rock, ain't nothing going to work there. But however, also having that whole growth mindset, realizing that what didn't work today, there's a possibility it's going to work tomorrow. With improved technology, with improved knowledge, with improved things will work. So as a scientist, nobody says never anymore. It's just like not now. right? But who knows, tomorrow that will change, right? So it's everything about experience. I wrote about, I think you're very, very correct. Using that experience to make it better.
As we slowly wrap up our conversation, when it comes to unleashing the potential of individuals and organizations, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you?
I think for me, as someone who's led and someone who's been led, I think giving people the opportunity to be their authentic self, giving people the opportunity to be who they are, giving people the opportunity for them to be vulnerable enough to say, I had a fight with my husband this morning and my whole world is crushing. When people can come to that point to be able to say, hey, I know I'm not feeling right now, and I know that my feeling can affect the team, but I just want you guys to know, but I'm going to do my best to ensure that, the team does not lose out, so that people don't lose out, that I'm able to do all I need to do. If we're able to create that environment, it becomes a very effective environment. It becomes a very, very happy environment where people are on tech and you get the best results, right? That's what I've just got, that creating that environment where people can express how they feel and not be judged, not tell them to say, oh, you're which one. He's the good one, she's the bad one, or she's the good one, he's the bad. Even that, creating that space, and even as leaders, having that emotional intelligence, to create that space. Somebody said, like sometimes it's easy, and sometimes this happens to me all the time, where, you just tell somebody like, oh my God, I just, I hit my foot, something, and all in the next second, like they're not talking about that. Is okay, okay, as just what we're saying, like, y- you know, sometimes you start feeling that maybe they don't care about me, or maybe they're not listening to me, like I'm not being listened to, right? Yeah. So I think let's create that environment that people can be authentic. People can be vulnerable enough to say, I'm happy, I'm not happy. When we create that environment, for me, this is what I have seen. I have seen that space to be the best space. In the story I told them where I was slapped, that was one of my best, environments, because I gave everybody the opportunity to be themselves. I gave every person the opportunity to say, even when I show up, to say, hey, I'm not really happy right now, things are not right with me, that environment is good. And I'm going to end with this story here. I was in a conversation with another group last week, and they told me something that blew my mind, right? One of their team members showed up sick. She was she had to go to the hospital and all that for a period of time. And guess what the team did? Guess what the team did? The team said, well, we want her to still be, because it was this sort of job where, she's going to be off and she doesn't have that benefit. You know what the team did? The team said, okay, they told, like, we want you to keep paying her. However, we're going to share all the responsibilities between ourselves. And I was blown away. The leader was like, and when she heard it, she was like, what? And they were like, yeah, this was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. They all did that. And in a space of 3 months, she was able to get back to work. So I started wondering, what sort of environment is that? Think about it. What sort of environment are people happy to be able to say, I will take on that responsibility, that, but my team member, I want to make sure she's fine, right? Just, it's a small organization, but I started thinking of the power in that organization, right? So I think if you create those environments, you're going to see things that people will go further for you. You don't have to tell people, people will go further for you because they understand how their responsibilities or what they do, how it all contributes to team success. So for me, that's one thing. And for me, I thrive in those environments. And I've seen many other people try, even the most difficult of people, the most difficult people, try to make it, when they come into that environment, they can tell you, I know I'm difficult. I know I'm difficult. They always tell you, they're like, but because of the environment has created that for them to be vulnerable enough to say, I'm difficult, for them to own it and say, well, but I'm going to walk through it to make it a better place. Right. So for me, I think it's that, just create that environment, people are authentic, emotionally, have that whole emotional intelligence and see what is going through. See people behind the suits they wear, the very beautiful clothes they wear, how they, find what makes them who they are, find them what makes them tick, find them what makes them powerful, find them what makes them weak, and know your people. Yeah, for me, I think that's I think that's
I'm grateful that you left us with a feel good story. And very last question to you is if individuals are looking to reach out and intentionally connect with you, what's one thing that's top of mind for you that potentially can be that bridge, especially if they're reaching out, they're like, I don't know where to start, right? Dennis has achieved so much. I'm so intimidated. What's the best way to connect with you?
I would just say the best way to connect with me is just say hi on LinkedIn. That's all. Or you could just go if like I know some people they are like, very introverted. I'll just tell them, just check my profile. I'll find you. I will be the one to reach out. Right. But people can reach out, anyone can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to always, share. I would always try my best to make out the time. I don't know if it's 10 minutes or 15, but let's just know where you are. If there's anything I can do to help, I will provide that. I will give that support as well. Because I think that's what makes us a beautiful community, being here to support one another. So yeah, LinkedIn would be a great way to reach me, and let's build the world. Let's make it a better place together.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your story. I will never forget my first interaction with you at the Mesh conference. So it was through one of our mutual connections, Lori, and
Yeah,
like, have you met Dennis? I was like, no, but then you're like, and he like gave a hug, and I was like, that's like genuine happiness to see someone, and we've never interacted, and then just from then on, just seeing you interact with the rest of the room where it's like, hello, and they're like across the room and just like, again, you're just a ray of sunshine and it's not
thank you.
it's authentic, right? It's not
Yeah,
a facade or anything. And it's been consistent everywhere. And whenever I have different conversations externally as well, it's
yeah,
they're like, oh, like, have you met Dennis? I was like, yeah, actually, yeah. Like, I'm surprised you met Dennis too. Right? So it's all great interactions. So again, thank you for sharing your
thank
experiences,
you.
but not just the highs, but the growing and the learnings that have come with your journey. I think it shows you are human and we are all human.
Yeah,
And to everyone else that's tuned into another episode, thank you so much for your time and attention. It means more to me than you'll know, and I can't wait to stay in touch with you on my next episode. Till then, stay safe.